Godfather Kotobuafo and Kojo Kotobuafo. Hi guys, good morning.
Good morning. Happy Founders Day.
Happy Founders Day to everybody.
Yes. Happy Founders Day to the men and the women who put their shoulders to the wheel, the struggle for independence and for for laying the foundations of this great nation called Ghana.
Yep. They've
When
done
we
their
grow
part.
up, we want to be like them.
Want to be like them,
Yeah, look, you see, heroes are people that we've not celebrated well enough in this country. Now, if we highlighted their stories a lot more, not just the men, but the women as well,
That's true.
and the youth got to know their exploits, it will spur us on to also want to do more for the country.
True.
And it's also a good point to sit back and ask yourself, if those persons that we call founders were alive today, to observe what the country they founded has become. And I'm not saying positive or negative. I'm just saying if they were around to look at what Ghana is today, would they be happy or not? As we celebrate them today, knowing who these men and women were, what they stood for, what they went through to make sure that this country was founded, would they be happy with it? Or we will tell them that, it's a generational gap, so you would not understand 2020. So it's a good day to just sit back, and it's also mostly for our political leaders. Founders Day is not just for the citizens, it's for the political leaders, because today is the day you must consider, again, like I said, if a founder were here and I were talking to him and he asked me, what have you done with Ghana, the country I left you, would you be able to give an answer that would make that founder happy? So it's the leadership of this country.
Yeah.
They are the founders of tomorrow.
Should
So if they don't do the right thing now, you
Well,
should ask themselves some hard questions.
maybe later we can have a chit chat about the country as it is. But
Yeah.
not a lot of the newspapers came in today.
It is the founding papers that are here. The founding papers. Yeah. Graphic is here, Times is here.
Yes.
Founding papers.
Oh, Charlie.
All right, so let's go. Front page of the Daily Graphic, a founding newspaper.
Yeah.
President on wheels. First locally assembled VW vehicles unveiled. Automobile Development Center to monitor standards. The president is sitting in the VW. Charlie, by the way, possible like the president or driver yache. He wants to step on the accelerator. He wants to step on the thing. But it's a good photo. President Akua was at the VW plant. So we'll give you details on that. Nation pays tribute to Founders Day. Professor Aaron Michael Quay, Speaker of Parliament, sitting there as well. Defense Minister, NDC trade accusations over voter registration is also here.
Now, the Ghanaian Times, ongoing voter registration exercise. EC exceeds target, registers over 15 million voters so far. Woman who allegedly murdered 2 children to undergo psychiatric tests. I am sure of victory in December polls. President Akua. And sad news, 115,000 businesses closed down due to COVID-19. This is according to the Ghana Statistical Service.
Oh.
And if you check the back page of the Ghanaian Times, Togbe Afede calls for reunification of Ghana neighbors.
If you go online, and because the newspapers are not here in their numbers, a lot of the stories will come from the portal. City Newsroom, voter registration, imposter registrants, fake guarantors being prosecuted. EC, Sami Jemfi says, Akufo scheming to disenfranchise Ghanaians with military deployment to Banda. Military deployment in Banda threatens peace. That's the NDC's General Secretary, Asiedun Ketia. Rawlings is upset. He says, I'll deal with Carlos' agenda of Ahoy, others soon. Rawlings reacting to the book written by the Ahoys, or the Ahoy.
Oh, you
Professor Kwame Ahoy. Hey, the Ghana Statistical Service says lockdown caused 42,000 layoffs, reduced wages of over 750,000 workers. And Kojo, I think that's in line with the story you put out there. If you go to citybusinessnews.com, says Unipass implementation, GRA debunks claims of not meeting revenue target at Tema Port. 3-week lockdown reduced wages of over 770,000 workers. La Palma Royal Beach Hotel staff protest again over unpaid salaries, one CEO sacked. ShopRite to exit Nigerian market after 15 years. And IMF-induced policies will repress Nigeria's currency. That's organized labor from Nigeria. Speaking there. If you go to myjoyonline.com, it says missing kilos, how state-owned produce buying companies fleece cocoa buyers. President Akufo-Addo unveils first VW vehicle assembled in Ghana. UPSA Governing Council reappoints Prof. Oko Amate as Vice Chancellor. And government requests parliamentary approval for $86 million loan to purchase armored vehicles from Israel. And the defense minister says NDC MPP guilty of busing people to registration centers in Banda. Now, if you want an update on the woman who was lynched, unfortunately, Occupy Ghana has been urging government to arrest all persons present during that sad event. Star FM Online says government seeks $166 million loan to purchase armored cars. Akufo-Addo to Ghanaians, I've done my best. It's your turn to rate me. Asepa says collapsed banks, government being selective in payment to customers. Akufo-Addo unveils first assembled VW vehicles in Ghana. And 9 more people die from COVID-19. Death toll now 191. If you head to CNN, or no, the BBC rather, it says US Treasury should cut off TikTok deal. That's President Trump speaking. And Beach SOS saves sailors stranded on tiny island. Now this happened in the Pacific. Very, very interesting story. And Hurricane Isaias makes landfall in North Carolina. And Spain's ex-king Juan Carlos leaves country. And if you go to CNN, it says Trump spins virus failure as a win again. Of course, COVID-19 dominating the headlines. Leaked police body cam video shows new details of George Floyd's fatal arrest. And SOS in the sand saves Pacific Island mariners. So those are the stories that are on some of the portals. I think we should start from COVID-19.
No, that's a story.
Which one? That's VW.
That's a story. I want to start with Kafaba today for one reason.
Okay.
And then
Let's hear that.
we can do a couple of other stories. There are a lot of political stories going on. But if you go to page 36 of the Daily Graphic, all we need is justice. Eldest son of the late Akua Dente. And you will know why I want to read the story soon. The first son of the late Madam Akua Mariama Dente, 90, who was lynched on the accusation of witchcraft at Kafaba in the East Gonja municipality in the Savannah region, says only justice can appease the family. Mr. Mahama Salami, 58, said although the Savannah Regional Coordinating Council had set up a foundation in memory of his late mother, the arrest and prosecution of those who had killed the old lady should supersede every other compensatory venture. All that the family is demanding is swift action on the part of the police to bring the offenders to face the law, he added, adding, you cannot kill somebody based on mere allegations of witchcraft. Now, today, we get to know who she actually was, because Mr. Muhammad Salami says that Mrs. Madam Akua Dente gave birth to 7 children, with one of 5 females deceased among the siblings. She was described as a devout Muslim who lived a quiet and peaceful life and wished to live longer to take care of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She had 21 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. Now, this is the part. In 1986, Kojo, she and her husband were adjudged the best district farmers.
Wow.
For the East Gonja district.
1986 was the year I was born.
In 1986.
Yeah, that was the year of my birth too.
She has fed people.
She's fed people before. She's been awarded before.
Wow.
Charlie, could you continue?
Pathetic. Just to dovetail into that, Occupy Ghana has called for the arrest of all persons who were present during the lynching of the Akua Dente at Kafaba in the Savannah region. Now that story is on myjoyonline.com, and according to the group, in addition to the prospects of jail term over their inaction, their statement says, quote, they are very likely to help identify and track all the perpetrators in the murder. Now, Occupy Ghana has released a statement to this effect, and they have described the act as barbaric and unconstitutional. And they said the canker of mob action, quote, is rather a dark side of our country's history and does not seem to want to go away.
Okay, so let me take you to the center spread of the Ghanaian Times. We've heard two bad stories. Let me give you something to be happy about. President unveils first VW car assembled in Ghana.
Yeah.
Now, the story says President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo yesterday unveiled the first VW car assembled in the country and restated the resolve of the government to stimulate the local automotive industry to boost the economy. The Tiguan Highline Plus brand is the product of an MOU signed by the government and the German automobile company in 2018 to establish a vehicle assembly facility in the country. Other brands displayed at the event, attended by the government officials, industry players, were the Terramon, Amarok, Polo, and Passat, which were all assembled by Universal Motors Limited on behalf of VW. According to President Akufo-Addo, the creation of a vehicle manufacturing and assembly industry annually. He said the new industry would promote import substitution, enhance Ghanaian exports in the African continental free trade area when it becomes operational. So VW Akwa.
Now, staying on that tangent, let me do a story on page 37 of the Daily Graphic. COVID-19 causes 42,000 employee layoffs. Business Tracker Survey. The coronavirus disease has left considerable impact on Ghanaian businesses, forcing an estimated 115,000 of them to close down permanently or temporarily since March 12 this year. This is part of results from a survey conducted by the Ghana Statistical Service to determine the actual impact of COVID-19 on businesses, to which the United Nations Development Programme, the World Bank, and other partners provided financial and technical support. The COVID-19 Business Tracker Survey indicated that majority of the number were small-sized firms. The survey also established that about 770,000 workers, representing 25% of the national total workforce, had their wages reduced, while about 42,000 employees were laid off during the country's COVID-19 partial lockdown. So now we are beginning to put some proper numbers to the COVID-19 impact on the economy.
And more on this, workers in accommodation and food sectors were worst hit when it comes to the job losses and those who had to either go home temporarily or permanently. And according to Professor Samuel K. Enim, businesses that had closed down, 30,000 of them were permanent. So it means these businesses
are not coming back. Yes.
While the fate of the remaining 85,000 that were also not operational were yet to be determined by their owners. He said more than 2/3 of businesses that were closed down were micro-sized, whereas about a quarter of them engaged in the provision of accommodation and food services remained closed. Firms in the Greater Accra region and Kumasi areas where the partial lockdown was imposed, he said, had the highest level of closures, with education being the hardest hit, followed by financial services, transport and storage, accommodation and manufacturing. And he says about 1 in every 10 businesses in the manufacturing, health-related, retail, wholesale and construction are still closed down. And according to Professor Enim, demand for goods and services slowed down for 476,000 businesses. So aside the 115,000 closed, 476,000 businesses had a slowdown of demand, and with only about 26,000 businesses recording an increase in patronage. There were interruptions in supply of inputs and access to finance, and according to him, about 252,000 of all firms faced difficulties in finding inputs, that is all business firms, while on the average, close to 131,000 businesses had challenges accessing finance. So inputs, demand, finance.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about, still on this situation, free power will reflect in August. People have been asking about this one.
Yeah.
ECG explains. That story is on page 36 of the graphic. The Electricity Company of Ghana says the 100% absorption of the electricity bills for lifeline customers on both the prepaid and postpaid metering systems as directed by the government will be realized from August 2020 to January 2021. This was contained in the press statement issued by the MD of ECG, Mr. Kwame Ajiman Budu.
The Ghana Water Company also has been speaking. They have reaffirmed their stance to commit great zeal and immense resources towards the efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19. The Water Regional Manager of the company, Manuel A. Johnson, gave the assurance when he presented 300 packets of bottled water worth about 5,000 cedis to the Water Regional Coordinating Council. Every packet contained 15 bottles, each with a volume of 500 mils. And it goes on to say that the company will ensure that their customers get water consistently whilst we fight COVID-19.
And WAEC says they are vindicated on page 44. WAEC, we are vindicated. Page 44 of the Daily Graphic. It comes with a photo of Mrs. Wendienionam Adilamte. Now, WAEC says the first two papers of the ongoing WASI vindicates its position that the so-called leaked papers were fake. It said the alleged leakage was a machination of rogue website operators to entice candidates and desperate parents to part with money for fake examination papers that look authentic. Now, speaking to graphic PRO of WAEC, Mrs. Agnes Tekujo said, this paper that has just been written goes to prove what WAEC and GES said, that the alleged leaked paper was fake. Now, she also claimed that, claims that WAEC quickly changed the leaked papers were laughable and explained that it was impossible to set new questions, print, package, and transport to all 796 centers throughout the country between Saturday and Monday.
Now, whilst we talk about the WASI, one institution that contributed to our development as science students, and they are still contributing, is the Ghana Association of Science Teachers. GAST. You remember the... You use the integrated science GAST, right?
GAST, yes.
Well, I used biology, physics, chemistry. There was no mathematics GAST. I don't remember if we had something like that, but I remember biology, physics, chemistry. Now, the Ghana Science Association on Thursday presented 1,000 copies of science magazines to the Ministry of Education for distribution to senior high schools. Now, the Honorary National Treasurer of the Association, Professor Regina Apiapong, presenting the books to the Minister of State in charge of tertiary education, Professor Kwesi Yanka, appealed for financial support to produce more of the books for both basic and senior high schools in the country. That, she explained, was the only way to demystify the teaching and learning of the subject and make it attractive to the learners. I am joining the appeal that we should give them the funding they need. We should evaluate the work they are doing and find what they need and give them that support.
Of course, that's important.
Because we should learn science our own way.
Yes, of course.
We should not learn science with examples from Iceland, Australia. We need to learn science with examples from Kofi Chrome, Poku Chrome, Georgia, and Solar, and all these places. Right. Yes.
Well, if you go to citinewsroom.com, the EC is speaking, and matters of registration are also quite prominent. The EC says imposter registrants and fake guarantors are being prosecuted. And they revealed this yesterday. So Dr. Bosman Asare, who's the deputy chairman at the EC, he said this. The story is on citinewsroom.com. He stated that an example that a Nigerian was arrested and sentenced on Wednesday, July 29 by the Kaneshie District Court to 6 months imprisonment with hard labor for attempting to register. And the two individuals who guaranteed for him are also on the police list. The police is looking for them. Sami Jemfi of the NDC says the president is scheming to disenfranchise Ghanaians with military deployment to Banda. Now, the stories in Banda have been dominating the conversations there.
We have quite a few in the graphic too.
Yes. So the Banda stories are quite
there. Yeah, on page 43, for instance, of the Daily Graphic, Defense Minister NDC trade accusations over voters registration, and says that the Minister of Defense Dominic Nitiwul and the National Democratic Congress have traded accusations over the alleged prevention of some people to register in the last phase of the mass voters registration exercise in the Banda area of the Bono region. While Mr. Nitiwul explained that soldiers were sent to the area by the RegSec to enforce an agreement reached between the NPP and the NDC on the busing of people to registration centres, the NDC, led by its General Secretary Mr. Johnson Nesidu and the Ranking Member on the Defence Committee of Parliament, Mr. James Angalga, said the acts by the military were meant to allegedly prevent NDC supporters from getting their names onto the electoral roll.
I think on the Banda issues, we can end with this story from the Ghanaian Times. NPP NDC smoke peace pipe in Banda district. And this was contained in a statement by the Public Relations Directorate of the Ghana Armed Forces. They say that the reps from the two major political parties have signed an agreement to ensure peace in the Banda district. Now, if you go to the back page of the Times, Tugbe Afede calls for reunification of Ghana and our neighbors. Now, the story says the president of the National House of Chiefs, Tugbe Afede, has said that it is high time the international frontiers which separated Ghana and their neighbors for several decades became points of reunification amongst them. He described as a crime against humanity the separation of families with blood bonds by imaginary borders sketched by colonial authorities. He made the call when he visited a border post in the Fajato South district on Saturday when he led a delegation of chiefs from the Volta region to the area.
Okay.
Now, he said that at Leklebi, Kame, for instance, the immigration control post is situated about 300 meters from the pillars between the countries. As a result, many Ghanaian families whose houses are on that vast stretch of land in Ghanaian territory behind the gate at the border post are now trapped there, as they cannot cross the gate into the main town due to the closure of the border. And that, as a people, we should work on regionification.
Let me give you this story from the BBC. Very interesting story. 3 Micronesian sailors stranded on a tiny remote island in the Western Pacific have been saved after rescuers spotted their SOS message on a beach. Now, the men were found on Picolot Island in Micronesia by Australian and US military aircrafts on Sunday. They had been missing for 3 days after their 7-meter skiff ran out of fuel and strayed far off course, and all of them were found in good condition. So it turns out the gentleman had written a large SOS onto the sand or into the sand at the beach. And so as the rescuers also were flying over looking for them, they saw the SOS.
That's some fantastic stuff. And finally,
Robinson Crusoe
from my end, if you go to page 47 of the Daily Graphic, it says Judgment Day is finally here.
Yes.
And that's the matter of Kwesi Palmer, Wilfred A.K. Palmer versus the GFA. The Court of Arbitration for Sport will rule on the landmark case today. By 10 a.m., that ruling should be in. So we'll give listeners an update.
Yes. Anyway, thank you, Godfrey. Thank you very much, Kojo. That was the newspaper review brought to you by Fidelity Bank, Total Quartz, Airtel Tigo, and Enterprise Life. At 7, we'll bring you the Citi Business News.
This is the Citi Breakfast Show, the city's biggest conversation.
Charlie, check this.